Welcome to Thrive Radio. I'm your host, Amy Montgomery, entrepreneur and digital marketing agency owner. Today, my guest is Raeanne Lacatena. She is a seasoned certified business coach with over 13 years of experience. Her holistic approach to coaching empowers entrepreneurs to transcend limitations, overcome imposter syndrome, and find harmony between personal growth and business success. With her upcoming book, The Integrated Entrepreneur, she offers invaluable insights and strategies for those seeking to create impact, achieve financial freedom, and thrive in today's fast-paced world. Rayanne, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited for our conversation today. I want to start with your journey. Can you share a little bit about that? How you've gone from the certified business coach for the past 13 years and transitioned and integrating the personal development with the entrepreneurship, and how you came up with that?
Yeah, it actually happened in the reverse order.
Okay.
I started my career as a mental health therapist. I started early in pediatric work, actually, where I was learning how to, first it was learning how to build programs for mental health professionals, but then also transitioned into counseling. So I had this dual certification. I didn't know at the time that program building element was actually business school. I figured that out like 20 years later. So I've been in personal development now for 20 years, and I kept a counseling practice for many, many years. I had the pediatric palliative care experience where I was working with families with life-threatening illnesses, and I got a crash course in life. I learned so much from that experience, and everything that I learned in that experience is informed in what I do today. I also picked up a Reiki certification along the way. I am now an energy worker and Reiki master. It's not the primary focus of the work that I do, but it is so important to who I am as a human being and informs a lot of what I do because I'm now a certified professional business coach. And I call myself a holistic business coach because I really am that expert on the internal world for business owners. And I believe that who we are anywhere is who we are everywhere. And so learning how to master that internal world is really the only thing that we can control in the whole wide world anyway. And so helping people focus on that first, and then also integrating what I call the masculine side of business, the numbers, the tactics, the data, the strategy. That's where my brilliance comes together in service to my clients, really pulling in the internal and external world for them to help them grow their business and actualize their potential.
Love that. What a journey.
Yes.
So we talked a little bit prior to the podcast about the employee mindset and entrepreneur mindset, and how do you navigate those differences and the different mindsets and help individuals focus on their strengths in both contexts?
Yeah, I actually, because I started in the mental health world, I was actually an employee first. I'm actually a naturally employee-minded person. And to me, what that means is somebody who craves stability and certainty, someone who does not like to take a lot of risks, someone who likes to prop somebody else up, someone who likes to help someone else grow something. They don't want to have their name on their door. They don't need to have their name on their door. That's not their primary focus. They really are supporters, connectors of someone else's dream, which isn't a problem. It's a beautiful mindset and it makes a lot of sense. And as a mother, having consistency and structure was important to me as well. Except when you're a business owner, you don't get stability and consistency. You need to be able to take risks, and to be able to cultivate and build something is a part of the process of entrepreneurship. And so a lot of times I'll either be teaching entrepreneurs. I've had to teach myself first how to release the employee mindset and move into the entrepreneur mindset. And so I can teach either entrepreneurs who are behaving like employees of their business, how to stretch their comfort zone, how to build that muscle of risk, that risk tolerance. Or if there is an entrepreneur who has an employee who might be a better fitted entrepreneur. So we can flop between these two worlds because entrepreneurs need employees as well. And it's not wrong or bad for them to have a different approach or mindset in the way that they approach things. It's just really making sure that you're in a position and a role that is matching what you've chosen to do.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think I mentioned this to you before the podcast. The first time we met was I geek out on it and I talk about it on all my podcasts, but I took the Gallup Business Profile 10.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I as a business builder? And mine was high risk, disruption, like all that, and
Yeah.
but I'll tell you this is that even though I love high risk, I love growth, I'm going to jump out of that airplane. Even though I love that kind of stuff, I still entrepreneurship is still difficult. And as far as the high risk goes. And
Mhm.
because you have to change, as you have to become the person that you need to be in every area to build a business to keep it alive, and you don't quite know what that is until you're in the trenches,
Yeah.
you know?
And you could imagine someone who does not have that high risk profile, how painful it is to be in that risky environment for them. And so it's really essential for them to either learn those skills or choose a different path, honestly,
Yeah.
because it can be stifling. That's when we see people stuck or their business isn't producing because they're trying to lead their business like an employee, because it is a whole different beast.
Yeah, definitely is. So let's talk about your upcoming book, The Integrated Entrepreneur. Could you share a little bit
Sure.
about it and what inspired it?
Yeah, sure. The book is still in the works right now, which it was its own transformation process itself, right? Not just employee to entrepreneur, but also into authorship was a whole different transformation for me. So the reason it's called the integrated entrepreneur is that holistic approach to business ownership is really what I talk about. So having the internal world and the external world coming together. And I go through the process of, first of all, something that was transformative for me was sharing some of my own personal stories, not something I normally do. It was an effort to build that muscle of risk and vulnerability, to share more of who I am with the world. And also a lot of stories from some of the clients that I've served over these many years to be able to show the journey that comes from that evolution, the hardship, but also the growth that can happen through entrepreneurship. And throughout the book, I offer little ways that you can integrate your internal and external world, ways that you can really be fully, authentically, truly who you are and step into your purpose and your mission more fully. Because to be able to actualize your potential moves entrepreneurship into the next phase. It's not just about earning money. It's about impact. It's about legacy. And that's really when this book comes into play, is when you're really wanting to step into a higher expression of who you're choosing to be in service to the world, which is a different playing field in and of itself.
I love that. It's amazing. What are some strategies in helping with all of the overwhelm and the health scale process?
Yeah, yes, it is very real. I'm a mom of three little children under the age of 6 years old. I have two dogs and a full successful business. And so I do know what it feels like to run all over the place and have a million plates spinning. Just being a mom in and of itself, the plates are spinning, and then the business is constantly pulling you in a million different directions. And so I work with a lot of people who are going through something similar to that. And even entrepreneurship in and of itself can feel like that sometimes. And really, there's so many different ways to answer your question. I can just give a few ideas. One of the most effective ways is to be present to what you're doing in the moment. There's these three different time zones that we think about in life. There's the past tense, the present tense, and the future tense. And so many people the plates are dropping when they're feeling overwhelmed, they're feeling frustrated. They're either in the past tense, worrying about something that already happened that they can't change because the past tense is gone, it's already done what happened, or they're in the future tense, which means that they're putting their worries or anxieties out into the future, and you can't change that either. It's not here yet. It's a fantasy. It doesn't exist yet. And so if we're thinking about the past or thinking about the future, we're not fully present to where we are. And that's when we start to make mistakes. That's when we make our lives more complicated. Because if our brain is focusing on something that already happened or something that's not here yet, then we're not focusing on what we can actually change right here and right now. And so presence is sometimes spoken about. We hear about mindfulness, and it's not given the full effects of what is possible when we're truly present to what we're doing. Because if we're multitasking, we might be making mistakes. If we're thinking about the past, we're not fully focused on what's in front of us right now. And that's when things start to go off the rails. Have you had that experience yourself, Amy?
Yeah. And I think that, especially like, I'm laughing at myself. If I go into fight or flight for whatever reason, like
Mhm.
I was in a car accident last night.
Oh,
right?
goodness.
Yeah, and it was a fender bender, and so it wasn't that nobody got hurt, right? My
Oh,
car's
God.
damaged, and you have to deal with the insurance and stuff, but it was traumatic because the lady that I was in an accident with was nasty, and I called the cops because she wanted the cops called, so I was like, "Okay," even though nobody was hurt, so that you can't do a police report, and he showed up, and he was like, "You don't need me," but he was not nice to me, so I was up all night last night, and
Mhm.
at some point, I had to say to myself, it doesn't matter. Like it's all gone. Insurance will take care of it. You're fine. You'll go forward your life. Just forget about it. And I've learned that even though it's important to process your emotions and give yourself time and rest and all that kind of stuff. In my day to get things done, I've had to choose and select, okay, what's the highest priority? I have hundreds of social media graphics to create, hundreds of videos I've got to create, and they've got to get done this week. But you sit down and you say, okay, what's the biggest priority right now? And just focus. Get that thing done. Go all in. And then I'll take a break and I'll go do something else, give my brain a rest. But I find that, to your point, when I can give that go all in just for, maybe I'm going to do an hour, maybe I'm going to do 2 hours, get in the zone, get everything out, I'm more productive than if I look at my big, long to do list, get overwhelmed by all the stuff I have to produce. And this is what's crazy is I have found I can do more than I think I can. So I'll look at my list and I'll be, oh my gosh. And that was true when I was an employee. I would look at everything that was getting assigned to me and I would look at it all as a big, huge monster that I had to do versus prioritizing it. And I would get overwhelmed. And now I've just taken a step back and just, okay, we're just going to take today. We're just going to go today. What's the priority today? What's the priority right now? And that has helped me a lot. So those,
Yeah.
yeah,
Chunking things down into smaller steps is incredibly helpful because if we're looking at the whole thing, it can feel like it's impossible. But if we just take those small steps in the moment, find those ways to create wins for ourselves and separate it out instead of having that massive list of 100, I just need to do one. And then I just need to do one. And then I just need to do one can really take some of the pressure off. And I also want to say, Amy, there's a difference between thinking about something that happened in the past and going through a traumatic experience. That's not hemming and hawing. When your body, when your mind goes through a trauma, it is important to create space for healing and for rest and for recovery.
yeah,
And I don't mean to say that the past tense, like you just need to buck up and go for it because something happened to you. I'm a mental health counselor first, and
yes,
there is incredible value in looking back and processing something that happened in the past. There does also come a point when you've processed something, when you have, as you said so beautifully, created the space to move through some feeling and to give yourself some time to rest and recover and to think through how things went, there does come a point where moving out of the past tense into the present tense and deciding what can I do about this now, that's when we can tip the scale back into keeping the plates going. But we do need to, as you said, create some time to move through some of the things that we have experienced in our life.
yeah,
Feeling feelings, processing traumas, that's incredibly valuable work. And if you don't, guess what? They come back to haunt you, right? I have
yeah,
60, 70-year-old entrepreneurs that I'll work with that are still struggling with something that happened with them on the baseball field many years ago because they've not processed the trauma. And so finding those things that are holding you back from the past and working through them is valuable. And also getting present in this moment is valuable. So I hope that helps as well.
yeah. No, I'm not minimizing the processing and all that. I think I spent probably 3 hours on the phone talking to a professional counselor after I went through all of that
Oh, wow.
because I
Mhm.
just needed support. I was like, okay, I'm not going to bother anybody, but I need some support right now.
I'm
And
so
I think,
glad you did that. Yeah.
yeah, and I think it's just kind of understanding. I think because I'm pretty mindful of myself and what I need and what I need to make myself feel better, or if I'm depressed and upset, what are the things that I typically do to help support myself? I think because I'm pretty aware, self aware, that helps a lot too. That's
Mhm.
when I was talking to that counselor about everything. She's, I'm impressed. You're so self aware. You know exactly what you need to do. Like
Mhm.
she would give me something and I was like, yeah, that's not really going to work, but I can do this. So I think because I have those tools. I actually had a psychiatrist at one point I went to for EMDR tell me, I'd go in and she's, you have tools that most people don't have. And I think it's because of my dad working for Tony Robbins for most of my life.
Mhm.
And just being raised in that and being raised in tools. Like
Mhm.
my dad, not that he didn't let me have a bad day, but he would always say, if you want to be happy, what would you be happy about? And so it's those little things that I know that I'm responsible for my state. I know that I'm responsible for like the processing of any emotions. I'm responsible for all these different things. So I think there's power in taking the responsibility. And then I think a lot of us, it's very easy with life just throws so much at you. And even as an entrepreneur, if I look at all the things that I've gone through the last couple of months, it's been like a trauma after trauma. But at the end of the day, I think I look at it like life is just going to throw you all these curveballs. And if you can find a process that helps you to not get derailed, because I think in the past I would get something bad would happen to me, and then I would go in disassociation for a month, right? And not be able to manage any of it and not process any of it or anything. And so I don't know, it's back to what you were saying of taking responsibility to process everything. And yeah, you got to heal. And it's the weekend for me. I'll be doing good over the weekend. But I think that also just being so self-aware, you know exactly what you need to do for yourself.
That in and of itself takes time and practice, though. Not everybody is self-aware. Not everybody's dad worked with Tony Robbins. I wanted to
Yeah.
show you, I wanted to show you this too. This came out since we spoke last. Me and Tony, look at the
Oh
screen.
yeah. I love
Yeah.
it.
So yeah,
Dad.
we I know it's exciting. It just so I don't know if this will be a video for the podcast listeners, but what we're looking at here on screen is a copy of the Cracking the Rich Code. That is a book that I was in with Tony Robbins that was just hit international bestseller yesterday, which was
Oh,
really
I love
exciting.
it. I love
Yeah,
that
so
series too,
yeah,
by the way.
we have that Tony Robbins in common. And really what I would say to that is self-awareness is a skill. You were handed that with practice from your dad and from Tony and all the teachings of Tony. Not everyone naturally knows what they need in the moment.
Yeah.
And that changes over time. What I need now is so different than what I needed 10 years ago, and
I,
is going to be so different than what I need in 10 years. And so self-awareness is a moving target too. Even though maybe one time a counseling session might have helped you in the past, maybe you need something different during this trauma. And so that self-awareness is going inward and understanding what you need in the moment as it changes and shifts over time.
yeah, yeah. I like that. And I think that as I've learned other things too, like holding trauma in your body. Like last night I'm laying there, I'm like, okay, I went through this accident. It was traumatic. I feel like the trauma's in my body. I need to do some stretching to get it out. Years ago, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even cross my mind that there's anything in my body that needs to be stretched out,
It's
right?
so good. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're building your tool chest and you're adding to all those things that you've already learned. And we always continue to grow and shift. And that's the beauty of life as well.
Yeah, I love that. So let's talk a little bit about imposter syndrome. So many
Okay.
people talk about this. And how do you help clients overcome that inadequacy and gain confidence? I feel like there's so many people that deal with this, and really just depending on where they're at in their journey and then what day it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. How we happen to be feeling at this particular moment. It's absolutely true. Yeah, we'll see imposter syndrome at the beginning of someone's business ownership where they think, I need more experience, I need more training, I need more knowledge, I need more wisdom. And so they feel like they can't play in the sandbox with other entrepreneurs because they haven't done enough of X, Y, and Z yet. But I also have A-listers that I take care of,
Yeah.
people with best-selling TEDx, Netflix, like just the cream of the crop in the world, and I will still hear them have these imposter syndrome thoughts in their brain. It is almost a human condition that we compare ourselves to other people, and a lot of people are not every person, but many people are very intensely hard on themselves internally, and that can breed imposter syndrome. And so one of the things that I like to help people do is what I call collecting evidence. And really looking at, because I'm a holistic business coach, we look at all the different elements in our life. We look at financial, spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, parenting, relationships. We look at if you're feeling imposter in this category in your life, let's just take a second and look at some of these other categories in your life. And can you give yourself permission to collect evidence that you're already successful right now? And practice letting your brain go to work on all the ways that you're doing things wonderfully. Because even though it may be different or slightly different in the entrepreneurial world, if that's where you're struggling with imposter syndrome, there are things that you can borrow from your successes in some of those other categories and apply it to what you're feeling less than competent at. Or maybe you can collect evidence that it doesn't make sense that you're an imposter, helping you see those reasons that you are at the table, that you are in the room, that you do belong, really practicing going to work on our thought work and our emotional work to help us remember how we got here, because we forget. And we remember how much we've learned and how much we've grown and how much we've done to get to where we are now. And so sometimes a look back and collecting that evidence and then applying it to what we're going through right now can be incredibly helpful for overcoming imposter syndrome.
Gosh, it's so insightful. I love that. And
Thank you.
I love what you said about looking at your current successes and drawing principles maybe from those things to apply to other areas.
Yeah, there's so many transferable skills in what you're doing in life. And
Yeah.
you can find a way, if you put your mind to work at it, you can find a way to use those transferable skills in other areas that you're feeling less competent with 100% certainty. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Love that. So let's talk a little bit about what a coaching session looks like for you, because you do the holistic and mind, body, spirit, and then you have the personal development and you have all these angles. How do you work with people? What can they expect when they're working with you?
Yeah, so I have a value-driven approach. And what I mean by that is value lives in the mind of the other. And finding out what is valuable to them in the moment is part of the process. Because I'm a mental health therapist, a coach, a mentor, and a Reiki master, there is pure coaching out there, and that is incredibly valuable. And sometimes that is absolutely what is necessary, but that's not exactly what I do in my work. I don't only do coaching, which is this drawing out of someone else, what's going on in them. And that's part of it for sure. What is happening in your life, and asking really great questions and getting curious with someone to draw out their greatness. That's what coaching is. I also have now 20 years in personal development, 20 years in mental health counseling, many years as a Reiki master and as a business coach. And so sometimes I put on my counseling hat briefly when there's trauma processing necessary, EMDR, et cetera, et cetera. I will refer out, of course, because that's the right thing to do. But there are other hats that I can put on for my clients in the moment. And what we do is we decide what is the most valuable thing we can be working on today. And we integrate what I call the masculine and feminine in that process. So what's going on in your internal world? How can we integrate more adventure, more play, more collaboration, communication? That's all the feminine side of things, but then also the masculine. What are the numbers? What is the data? What is the strategy? What are those tactics that are going to help you get to where you want to go? And so we do a little bit of both on every single call, and we'll call in whatever is necessary in the moment for that client, whatever they're going through. I do this in group settings. I have a small group. I have a mastermind. I have one-to-one coaching sessions as well. And so there's a lot of those principles that kind of come together to create that holistic environment that I bring to the table.
I love that. You just go at it from every angle.
Yeah, I'm the Jill of all trades.
I was thinking to myself, man, if I hired her, like I wouldn't be able to get away with anything.
No, you don't. Yeah, my clients call me lovingly direct. They say that it feels like you're hugging me and hitting me with a 2x4, Rayanne.
Right. I love that.
So come here, let me hug you, and then I'm going to slap you upside the head and knock some sense in you.
Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah, it's fun. It's super fun. And it's not right for everybody. I would be deluding myself if that were the case. But yes, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I probably would have done better with you than the psychiatrist that was telling me, asking me to teach her.
That'll happen.
And I was like, this is how you erase trauma with NLP.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because I would go to the EMDR and then she'd open some sort of like wound, right? And you don't really know what it is. You just feel this emotion, you feel icky. And then I would go home and I would just do the NLP on myself.
So good. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just erase it. I'm like, I don't want to feel this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'd go back and she'd be angry. What did you do? I'm like, I erased it.
You're
Like,
welcome.
she's what? No, we need to
No,
dive
no,
into
thank
this.
you for the medication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah,
I love it. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah. So yeah, there's no need to dive into things. Once it's there, erase it.
Yeah, you are very well resourced.
Yeah. So how do you help entrepreneurs identify and leverage their unique abilities and self-care
Mhm.
practices? I'm emphasizing that because I'm learning that to maximize their potential and achieve their goals.
Yeah, the first piece that we already started talking about is that each human being is different. And the part of the work, that's why I'm not to overemphasize it and to overemphasize it, we have to get comfortable going inward. We have to get comfortable with who we are as a human being. So many people, especially entrepreneurs, especially high achieving entrepreneurs, they just put themselves to work, they drive, they go, and it almost becomes a distractor. And we forget to go inward and check in with our bodies, check in with our emotions, check in with our thoughts, check in with our intuition, with our creativity. So there's this whole internal world and experience that actually informs our external world. So part of it is going inward and learning who we are as a human being. There are so many other entrepreneurs out there who are telling you this is the only way to do things, or follow this particular framework and you'll be successful, or I'm right, you're wrong, or copy me, or do these different types of things that are going to get your success. You need to learn to go inward and honor who you are as a
Yeah.
human being in order to be successful. So that question you asked me, like, how do you help people honor their unique brilliance? Step one, who are you? What
Mhm.
is your unique brilliance? And learn, and then often I'll work with both male and female entrepreneurs. But the ones that come to me don't always own their greatness. Ones that already own their greatness don't tend to work with me. The ones that come to me need practice celebrating who they are. They need practice really stepping in their power and making sure that they're shining to the fullest, making sure they're visible, making sure they're transparent, making sure they're celebrating their successes, which is not something that everybody does easily. And so that's part of it, is really healing who and owning who you are as a human being. And then the second part of the question was the self-care practices. Again, you need to know what you need, which involves listening to thyself in order to understand what self-care practices are. Because there's probably billions of ways that you can engage in self-care, but some of them are not going to feel right. I have some clients who don't want to touch Reiki with a 10-foot pole, and they don't, or some that will never engage in meditation, but they have a favorite band that they listen to that puts them in a meditative or a transcendent space that feels really good for them. And so it's really just finding your unique way to calm the central nervous system, to honor who you are, to separate out, and not necessarily separate out, but enjoy both work and play, to integrate both work and play into this whole experience of who you are. And when you do that, it's like puzzle pieces locking in, and that creates leverage, because the more you can be authentically you, the more you will shine in a marketplace that is saturated with any given coach or marketing idea or whatever the case may be. It's really just owning who you are allows you to be more successful. It's not that simple, obviously, because there's also the masculine side of things. You need to find a strategy that fits you, that will help you leverage into next phases of your business too. But that's part of the fun. When you know yourself better, it's easier to find the thing that fits you.
Yeah, definitely. I like that. What do you do that really that you find is the most effective in helping business owners clarify their vision and kind of map out everything to reach their goals?
Yes, this is definitely a process that we go through all the time. I have some business owners that do better in shorter increments. We'll do a 12-week year type model where we're doing shorter bursts because of the way that their energy works. I have some that will do the annual fiscal year and planning. I have some that are working on legacy plans. So their 10-year plan, and what is our exit strategy as we're moving through the business. Some that come to business knowing what the end in mind is and wanting to work their way backwards into it. And so it may sound like an easy question, but that it's very actually a complex question, because there's so many different angles that you can get at it. The unique flavor that I bring to the table when it comes to goal setting, though, is that the traditional masculine approach to goal setting is, you've heard of SMART goals before: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time bound. That's important. It's valuable. You need to know, how are you going to get there, when you're going to get there, what's it going to look like, and is it related to the thing that you want to accomplish? You need to figure those things out. What so many people leave out in goal setting is how do you want to be thinking before, during, and after your goal setting? How do you want to be feeling before, during, and after achieving those goals? So, how are you going to practice generating feeling sets, which is really the momentum creator? And also, what are you going to be doing? Who are you going to be being in the process of creating these goals, achieving those goals, and setting those goals? And there's a more, again, internal process to it. What's our thinking state? What's our feeling and our emotion state? And what are those activities that we're going to turn into movement to create the success? We're not just thinking about specific, measurable, and time bound. We're also thinking about what are we going to be thinking? What are we going to be feeling? And what are we going to be doing to help us get there?
I like that. So let's talk about collaboration and effective communication in business, because obviously that's a huge skill. And a lot of people, I would say, struggle with this. I talk to business owners every single day that if they could fine tune this in their business, they would probably be light years ahead. So how do you help them with developing this and foster those successful partnerships?
Yeah. So fostering good communication requires, in order to create good partnerships, is certainly a part of the process. And in the spirit of this theme that we're talking about today, this internal piece, part of the work is proactively pausing and thinking to yourself, is this conversation mutually beneficial? Whether it's a conversation, communication, or partnership, how can we get to a space where it's a win? Instead of coming to a partnership with what's in it for me individually, we're coming to a partnership and a communication thinking, what's in it for we? What's in it for both of us? And so you want to start and slow down before you go into any difficult conversation or any partnership and think, what is the win for the other person? What is the win for me? What is the larger win for the communities that we serve? Really go to work thinking about what is the shared positive purpose and what is the collective benefit of doing this partnership and having this conversation. And if you sit down to have a hard conversation and you can't think of how the other person benefits from having this conversation, don't have the conversation yet. You're not ready. And if you can't think of what the other person would benefit, really sit down and focus on whether or not that partnership is going to be right for you. So many people leave out that we element in the communication, and it's so critically important. The other piece that people often leave out in communication and partnerships, there is this old belief system that there is no place for feeling in business, and that is just wrong. People are feeling all the feelings all the time in business.
Yeah.
And instead of hiding from feeling or trying to suppress feeling, we want to bring feeling to the table in partnerships and in communication. Because if you're able to share, this is how I don't want you to feel, for example, people feel heard, they feel seen, they feel validated by someone caring enough to notice that they might feel something, or to be able to say, this is what I'm really hoping we can feel, we can get to in the process. Or maybe even, I'm just grateful for this partnership. So sharing either, I don't want you to feel this, or here's what I'd love for us to work towards and what I'd love to feel about this, really helps people to feel connected. And that community building, that partnership, the foundation of successful partnerships is trust. And trust is a feeling. And so developing that trusting feeling requires an attention to feeling. And so inviting feeling into conversation, inviting a shared positive purpose into the conversation, those are two really great ingredients that you can practice for healthy partnerships and communication.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I have heard, and I do this intentionally, whenever I'm communicating, I stop. And if I say, I feel, and then I'm like, no, don't say I feel, don't say the word.
Yeah.
And you're trained to approach it from a logical perspective,
Yes.
and shift your thoughts. But I really appreciate what you said, because yeah, I think that there's some value in when you're actually practicing empathy with people to
Yes.
approach things from that perspective.
Yes. There's no place for feeling in business is an old school that is, it's got to die. It needs to die. It'll be the hill I die on if it doesn't, because all human beings, one of the only things that makes us different is that we can feel things. We can feel all the things, and we're constantly complexly feeling
Yeah.
all the things. And so trying to ignore that is creating disease, it's creating drama, it's creating trauma, it's creating war, it's creating problems in politics, it's creating all the things. And so we
Yeah.
have to acknowledge that we are human beings who have feelings about something, at least as a starting point. That's the most basic truth about humans, is that we feel.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So what truth has gotten you this far in your journey?
What truth has gotten me this far in the journey? What a cool question. One of the philosophical truths that I really focus on, that actually for me, it doesn't for everybody, for me feels really empowering, is that while we don't have a lot of control in life, we always have a choice. And so there are so many things that are outside of our control. I happen to believe that the only thing in the whole wide world that we actually have control over is which thoughts we energize, if you
Yeah.
haven't noticed.
Yeah.
And even though we can't even control which thoughts pop in our head, we can control which ones we choose to energize. We can choose how we respond to a situation that we don't prefer. We can choose to respond to the market, to our employee, to a circumstance that happened that we don't prefer. And that's where we get choice again. And I find that so incredibly empowering. And that's really what I help people with, is really taking their power back around the choices that they have in their life. And that's really one of the major philosophical truths that has gotten me this far.
I love that. And one more question. If you were able to give yourself one piece of advice when you first started out in your journey, what would it be?
Nobody has it figured all out. Everyone's just trying to figure it out, right?
Right?
We all, like, there is no manual on life. There is no manual on business ownership. There is no one particular way to do things. And everyone has feelings that they don't know what they're doing. So just figure it out. And if you could, just have a little fun in the process, because if you choose to have this curious and exploratory mindset about business ownership, you're going to have so much more fun than if you try to figure it all out first, because it's not possible.
Yeah. You really do have to learn in some cases the hard way. And I think that because not a lot of entrepreneurs are out there avidly sharing their failures. If they were, then you could sit there and think, when I get to that failure, I'll know what to do.
Failure is it has a negative connotation. But if we
Yeah.
come at it from this place of failure is accelerated learning, like, it's not a problem that you failed. You're just one step closer to figuring it out. You're one step closer to your success, because failure gets this terrible feeling behind it, but it really isn't that big of a deal. You've just, oh, no, that didn't work. What's next? That's one of the main ingredients of a successful entrepreneur. Something happens. Okay, here we are. What's next? And if you can get there, then you're going to have such a better experience of your business.
Yeah, you've got to pivot fast.
Yeah, yeah, you get
Yeah,
to,
you
yes.
get to. So if there are individuals that are listening that would love to work with you, what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, if you're interested in working with me, I am the only Raeanne Lacatena in the world, but you'll probably have a hard time spelling it. And so I'm sure Amy will put my website, raeannelacatena.com, in the show notes. I'm also heavily on LinkedIn, is where I spend most of my time in social media, but I'm also on Instagram. So if you'd like to follow me on either of those, I'm just Raeanne Lacatena on both of those platforms as well. I'm happy to schedule a discovery session with you. If you want to read the book that came out recently, I am offering my chapter with Tony Robbins on overcoming business obstacles, the power of perspective. That's completely free in ebook format right now. So if you want to take advantage and learn, that would be a great starting place for you to learn more about what it's like to work with me.
I love that. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for coming on today and sharing your expertise.
Thank you for having me, Amy. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed our conversation.
Me too. Thank you so much.
And if you're listening, you want more information about today's podcast or other upcoming shows, you can visit acalltothrive.com. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful week.